We're in our early 40s, we work when we want to, and some people have been wondering how they can achieve this. Today we're going to talk about the decisions that we've made and the compromises that we've made to enable us to be able to get to where we are at the moment.
So some viewers have noticed that we have a rusty rice cooker, and in the background you probably see that our couch is a little bit tatty. Both of these are signs of values that we've chosen in life, which is about practicality over perfection. Making these sorts of compromises has put us more than $1 million ahead of the Australian median in spite of having just slightly more than median income.
This means that we've had more time to do the things that are important to us and that we've wanted to do, and this has led to us spending more time learning new skills, spending time with people, practicing, getting things wrong, all those things that are part of having a fulfilling and meaningful life.
And has also enabled us to donate well over $100,000 towards effective charities.
Which is the equivalent of saving 20 lives and helping thousands of others. The kinds of services that these effective charities run are, generally speaking, very basic. Things like eye surgery to restore eyesight for the elderly, mosquito nets, providing vitamin supplementation, things that are kind of really low level, but they're meeting basic human needs that otherwise wouldn't be met. So I am so happy that I can go to work, teach students, earn money, and then that money gets translated into life-saving, basic needs meeting stuff. Not all of the choices that we've made have been easy. There have been many times when I have felt very frustrated or annoyed or like it's too hard, and I've had to think, okay, how can I change my thinking? For me, sometimes it really is about making a deliberate decision to try to view my problem from a different perspective where I'm seeing opportunities rather than sacrifices. It's really helpful for me because it means that I can live like a life that's a bit more happy, that I'm not feeling like a victim or like I'm being forced into doing something that I don't really want to do or there's no benefit to me. Because trying to live like a martyr sucks, but living in a way that feels in line with my values, that's being helpful, and also, yes, there are hard parts, but there are also really great parts of it too. That's a life worth living, for me.
We're going to talk about decisions that we've made over the past 20 years that have put us ahead. We've broken this into 6 categories.
These are housing, transport, household goods, food, recreation, and energy.
This is not all of our expenses. This is just major items where we've identified a pretty significant difference between what we've spent or the things that we've done and what we would consider to be typical or what the Australian Bureau of Statistics has reported as the median spending in those categories.
All of the numbers that we are going to give to you will be in present day terms unless we specify that it's in the units of a different age because of inflation.
Number 6, energy. This is the smallest of the 6 savings. When solar was still an expensive ordeal when we first bought the house, and we spent $15,000 at the time putting on the largest solar array that we were allowed to. Because we were very deliberate about being a low energy consumer, and we got the premium feed-in tariff that was available to Queensland then and haven't reconfigured anything, it has now paid us back several times over. We also have used solar hot water right from the beginning. Our first system was one that I made out of irrigation parts, and I did the electronics work. I learned how to do electronics, and that was one of my first little projects. I made the circuit board and hooked it up with a second-hand hot water tank. A few years later, we bought a DIY solar hot water kit. We weren't eligible for the rebates, but overall still saved us about $3,000 on the capital cost. And hot water is often the largest single energy consumer in most households. So over that 15 years, that's saved us about $26,000 in 2026 currency, adjusted for inflation, and the earnings that we would have made on those savings over that time. The next largest energy consumer in many households is heating and cooling, and we were very deliberate about not putting in resistive heating. It's Brisbane, it's pretty mild most of the time, but it can still add up. And we didn't install air conditioning until just the last few years. And even then, we've barely used it. One of my favourite things that I own is a down doona that we got secondhand, and I'd much rather snuggle up under that in winter than like have hot air blasting on me. All up, that comes to about $67,000 in present day dollars. Number 5, recreation. So the biggest item in this category is alcohol and tobacco. Neither of us have ever smoked, and our drinking has gone up and down over the years. When we were younger, we homebrewed beer and cider and ginger beer. So over the 20 years, we've been through like a very cheap but maybe quite prolific drinking phase to a slightly fancy but less drinking phase. And over the last few years, we really haven't spent anything much at all. I feel a lot better being able to hang out with people without requiring that social lubrication.
Yeah, I think that the kinds of friends who we've been making, they don't really want to be drinking all the time either.
The Australian median spending on alcohol is about $3,000 a year, and over the past 20 years we've spent about $600 a year, and without the smoking that is about $52,000 over 20 years. The other thing in that category is gambling, and we have never gambled. Again, based on the Australian median, that's about $6,000 over that time frame. And the other recreation category that we've included in here, because it was a contrast with the norm, was our wedding in 2009.
Yeah, we had a nothing new themed wedding. We asked our guests not to give us anything new. We did have a list of things that they could give us secondhand, and most of them did that, or they made donations.
Yeah, that's what we had. We gave a charity that they could give to.
And I made my own wedding dress out of a secondhand dress that I got from an op shop. That was just really fun to do because I got to make it just the way I wanted, including making a form of me. We saved a lot of money by having it hosted at John's grandfather's place. He had a really beautiful garden. We had a local caterer serve up inexpensive and delicious Indian food. We homebrewed all the beer, cider and ginger beer, and we bought wines from the local area that were reasonably inexpensive, but still good.
We bought the cutlery and crockery and other table setting items from the op shop in that town, and then we gave them to the op shop so that they could be sold once again. The bonbonnerie was potted herbs that my mum made for us because she really loved decorating pots and also propagating plants, so it was actually an opportunity. And similarly with the cake.
That was the best wedding cake I've had.
So all up, our wedding cost about $8,000. The average at the time was $25,000. So adjusted for current day, the saving on it would be about $36,000. So all up across those 3 items and recreation comes to almost $95,000.
Number 4, food. One of my favourite things. In terms of savings, let's talk about 3 different categories. The first one is protein sources. Over the past 20 years, we've kind of swapped around between being mostly vegetarian to eating a very meat-heavy and standard Australian diet to being back to vegan and now opportunivores with the dumpster diving. Eating meat is really bad for our environment, and we'll talk about that in another video. The median household spends around $3,300 on meat, cheese, dairy, and other animal products, and we spend around $2,000 that's averaged over the whole 20 years. From meat to non-meat protein sources, because beans and tofu are cheaper than meat. Let's talk about discretionary food. These are items like snack foods, pre-made meals, non-alcoholic beverages, confectionery, cakes, that kind of thing. About 1/3 of all Australian energy input comes from eating discretionary foods, which are generally high in energy and low in nutritional value. They're not really the kinds of foods that we should be eating. The median expense for discretionary foods is around $3,000 per household. Our expense averaged over the 20 years is around $1,500, so about half. Before we had children, we didn't buy very many discretionary foods, but since having children, we have bought a whole lot because they are convenient. Children do really like to eat it, and they see their friends eating it, and so that's kind of what they want as well. We did reduce our purchase of those foods, but since we've been dumpster diving, those kinds of foods ends up in the bin quite a lot. I kind of have mixed feelings about getting these kinds of foods out of the bin because I know they're not really that good for us, but the kids love it. So, there's going to be an ongoing problem for me to deal with. That said, our children really like fruit. They eat a lot of fruit. We know that fruit is good for them. The average Australian probably doesn't eat enough fruit, but I reckon our kids eat well and truly what they're supposed to. So I feel good about them eating fruit nutritionally. Dining out and takeaway. I actually like cooking, so that makes it a little bit easier for me to go, yeah, I'll just cook myself. And we don't really get a lot of takeaway. And sometimes cooking a meal at home is just as quick as getting a takeaway delivered.
Dining out and takeaway spending really varies across the income spectrum in the ABS data. We're just looking at the median here, but it's still a really significant part of overall food spending, about $5,000 a year. And we spend around $2,000 a year. So in total, over the past 20 years, we've probably saved around $124,000 on our food choices. I have definitely had to learn compromise and to reframe my feelings because cooking vegan food at first was so hard. Oh my goodness, so hard. Number 3, household goods. This is a pretty broad category. We're just going to focus on the few items that we feel we've saved the most on. Largely our house and our living space is built and furnished with secondhand or salvaged materials. How about we take a stroll around our house to have a look at some of the equipment that we bought secondhand. Our dishwasher is a Miele. It is almost as old as I am, I believe. And yes, the rice cooker was secondhand, but it wasn't actually very old when we got it. It's rusted because it's made of low quality material. But it's safe to use, and if the rust becomes problematic, we'll just sand it and give it some paint. The new thing that we bought was our induction cooktop. That was $3,000, which is exceptional in our spending because we bought it new. But we needed something to fit the hole in the granite bench, and we wanted it to be induction, and that was the one that we could find. Our microwave was secondhand. It is close to 20 years old, still goes well. It did stop working for a little while, and we took the cover off, which is something that only a suitably qualified person should do, and found a mouse skeleton in the cooling fan. Once we cleared all that out and it could cool itself, cool the electronics again, it went back to working as well as it ever did. We have had other repairs done by qualified electrical engineers. Air conditioning units got ants in them and failed. New circuit boards cost about $500. Replacement of the whole air conditioner probably about $1,500. And our repair technician friend on Marketplace repaired them for under $100, including postage, labour and parts. Clothing and footwear. That's something that I really like, but I don't want to buy it new. So pretty much every item of clothing in this house is secondhand. Yeah, women's clothing. So cheap, so easy, and good quality from the op shop. Highly recommend it. Babies and nappies. Before we had our firstborn, I bought a whole lot of secondhand reusable nappies, and we used those for both of our children. We gave them to other people, your sister I think, who had her babies, and also we kept some of the nappies and we still use them as like cleaning rags. So baby clothing, baby toys, furniture, strollers, all that stuff. Yeah, we didn't spend a cent on a stroller. One of them was a very old-fashioned pram with a basket on it, and we still use that for our laundry basket. So the median household spends about $4,000 a year on furnishings and household goods, according to the ABS, and about $5,000 a year on clothing and footwear. And we've spent a fraction of each of those.
So overall, we've saved about $170,000 buying second-hand and getting free furniture and clothing items.
Number 2, transport. I was a little bit surprised at just how expensive it is to own a car. The Australian Automotive Association claims that the household cost of car ownership is about $25,000 a year. This is at odds with the ABS figures, which suggest it's closer to $15,000 to $18,000, depending on how you adjust for inflation. Our spending, nearest we can work it out, has averaged about $3,000 a year. And that is because we haven't replaced our car at the intervals that are suggested by the data, which is about every 10 years for a new car. And when we did buy a car, we bought a second-hand car, a relatively small one, and we've repaired it over the past 20 years rather than replacing it. So I think that often people will decide that when a car costs more to repair than to replace, then it's not worth keeping. But that's not really how the numbers seem to work out for us. We've been less worried about reliability than I think some people might be, and we haven't paid for roadside assistance. Part of that is having the confidence to get by if we did have a breakdown somewhere. So rather than having a car for the first 5 or 6 years of this time period, we took the train and cycled most places. And that didn't just save us the cost of the car, which was zero. We didn't have one at that time. It also saved us the cost of running the car. Over the time frame when we owned a property that was some way away, we did drive a lot more, similar to the Australian average, but only for a few years in that 20-year time frame. So averaged across the whole time frame, we have saved overall about $270,000 in current dollars on transport. And that is about $180,000 in yearly kind of running costs, not including the cars themselves, and about $93,000 on buying cars.
I think part of it for us was deciding that we could still have a small car even though we had children. I feel like there's a kind of an expectation that once you've got kids, they'll grow up, they'll have friends over, you need a bigger car to accommodate all the people. Whereas we just think, fit in the car, you know? If it's a bit squeezy, that's okay. We're only transporting people to a place. It's not we're going to live in here.
Yeah. And as it turns out, like once the kids were able to ride their own bikes and we could take them on the trains, the car is not as necessary as we think it is, as long as we have the time to plan journeys and to get around. And part of being able to live that way came down to where we chose to buy our house. And I'd say that, like, that's not necessarily an option that's available for everyone, but it was a key criteria for us, and we made a handful of other trade-offs, which we'll talk about right now.
1, house.
This is the big one.
So let's talk about sharing houses. When John and I were young people, before we owned our own house, we lived in share houses. We lived in share houses when we were at university. When we moved out of university, we lived in a share house. Then we rented a unit by ourselves for a little bit. Then we decided to move into a friend's shed, which had a house attached to it, and saved us some money with that as well. After we bought our house, we rented one of the rooms to one of our friends for a while, a number of years, until Adam was old enough to need a room of his own. More recently, we have built a granny flat, which we are renting out to people. So that's a share housing of sorts as well. So in total, our share housing of sorts has put us ahead by about $150,000 in current day prices. When we decided to buy a house, we thought about how much money we wanted to spend and cringed at the idea of how much our friends were spending on their houses. So we came up with a number of criteria, one being had to be on the train line, had to be within half an hour travel to work, which was in the city, and as cheap as we could afford while still being big enough for us. And so we spent $274,000 on a house at a time when the median house price was closer to $450,000. That was a mega saving, which has meant that we've been able to pay off our mortgage within 10 years of buying the house. When we bought the house, it was a 2.5 bedroom house. Had a very small study, and we were only planning to have one kid. So we thought, let's just get rid of that half a room and have a bigger living room. Took out some walls. We found a second-hand kitchen for a fraction of the price. And so we installed it ourselves. Similarly, we had a dodgy-ish bathroom that wasn't in the configuration that we wanted.
There was also water leaks that were wrecking the floor.
Yeah, and there was a hole next to the toilet where the floor was rotten. Yeah. So we decided to do a DIY bathroom with the help of your dad.
Yep, so experience from someone who knew more of what they're doing.
Yep, we designed it ourselves, bought the parts locally.
Salvaged glass, second-hand mirrors, second-hand fixtures, basin, it's brand new waterproofing.
That's a good thing to have brand new.
The bathroom benchtop is made of salvaged hardwood rafters, which we sanded down, and with the help of a neighbour who was a retired panel beater, painted it in automotive finish.
Is that why it's so good?
The door and drawer fronts are made out of flood-damaged bamboo flooring, which we spoke to the business that was affected by the flood, and they said, please take it, here's how you can care for it.
So in total, the kitchen and bathroom DIY jobs has saved us about $70,000. So then we decided that we would actually have a second child, and it was okay when both kids were small and they had a combined room. Then they started getting a bit older, and we thought it might be nice for them to have separate rooms and for us to have a little bit more sanity so they would stop bickering. We thought, well, the house is already really small. Maybe we should make it bigger. But we still wanted good light, so we thought, well, the best way to do that is to go up and build underneath. We thought we'll build an outdoor space, maybe we'll replace the roof. And then we thought, well, that's going to take some time to do. It's going to be expensive for us to rent somewhere, and it might be inconvenient because it won't be close by. Let's build a granny flat in our backyard that we can live in while our house is being renovated. So we built the granny flat ourselves with the help of your dad.
The shed that we fitted out as a granny flat was salvaged. A couple of friends, we packed it up, put it on the top of a ute, brought it over here and set it up under the tree.
Making the granny flat ourselves saved us about $90,000 in current day prices. And then we decided that actually we didn't want to spend that extra $300,000 to $500,000 on raising the house. And instead, we just built an extra room in the space that was our living room, and we made it really soundproof for the benefit of our child who would become a teenager at some point.
And since we didn't raise the house and didn't have to use the granny flat to live in ourselves, we thought the right thing to do was to make it available to the market, and that has helped generate that income that we talked about before with the share housing for the last couple of years. I felt a little bit ashamed about having a small house, and so about giving up some living room. But since we don't really have a TV and didn't really plan to have one, the living room that we had was the size or configuration it was mainly for Emily to practice dancing. And that wasn't such a thing anymore either, because you're doing partner dancing outside of the home, and maybe we just didn't need that space after all.
Yeah, I feel like we've spent more time outside since the living room has become our son's room.
Yeah.
And we also discovered that our couch actually fits here. And this is quite good because you can be in the kitchen doing cooking and other people can be sitting on the couch. And it's like nice.
It's a pretty good show. And when we do our family movie night, then we will just relocate a computer monitor and put it on the bench here or on the stools here. And that inconvenience means that the TV is not on all the time, and we're maybe a bit more likely to engage with one another as humans. Another project that we had planned, and it might have been part of that major renovation, was a large outdoor entertaining space. And we'd seen neighbours on both sides do that, and I guess it looked enticing in a way, like have this entertaining space that's undercover. It cost them between $40,000 and $60,000 to do those projects at the time. And we thought, that's money, that's what money's for, right? But then we thought about how much we actually enjoy sitting under our shady tree. It also would have made the house darker. And $40,000 is 2/3 of a year's worth of work for us, which if we didn't spend the money, we didn't need to do the work. Or if we did the work, we can give more money away.
I think it was nice to hear our friends say that they really liked spending time in our garden as well. Like, oh, this is a thing that you look forward to.
Yeah,
I don't have to be ashamed of saying, okay, now we're going to go sit out under our tree on the grass.
Yeah, that's right. It seemed like they preferred sitting under a tree. And we should highlight too that it could be up to 5 degrees cooler under a tree than under a solid roof. There's a handful of other projects around the place which we've done to improve or replace things which were of impaired function. Being frugal has afforded us the ability to work less than full time, but it has come at the trade-off of doing more ourselves. If you call that a trade-off, I actually really enjoy and find quite satisfying doing things for myself and learning new skills, and also getting the tools and capabilities to be able to do that work. Then not only for us, but often helping out friends as well.
I really like working with John on projects.
Oh, there's that bonus too.
Who needs a date when you can go and fix a thing?
So some of the stranger examples of that would be this cage which we use to try and keep brush turkeys from digging up our gardens. While we only used about 18 metres of this fencing here, we removed about 3 kilometres from a nearby police training centre where I spied contractors ripping the fence out with earth-moving machinery.
And I called up, said, hey, are you guys doing anything? Can we have that fencing? And they said, yes, please come and collect it for free.
Which would be tens of thousands of dollars worth of materials, which were just going to go for scrap. And we only used a fraction of it here. Dad took the rest. He lives on a farm and was able to use a lot of that material. The difference between what we spent on this and if we'd built out of new materials is about $8,000. That's just as an example. Probably if we didn't have access to the materials, we probably wouldn't have done it, or we would have done something much cheaper, or would have found some other way of accomplishing the same objective. Another was a boundary fence. A neighbour wanted a new fence. I felt that the old fence still worked quite well. So the compromise there was that we were able to relocate the existing fence sideways to make an easement for our granny flat, and reuse the posts on the existing fence after cutting off the rotten part and putting steel in the ground. So a small amount of new materials which the neighbour paid for, and again got to learn some new skills. And
it was fun to work with our neighbour on the project.
Another project that we completed just recently, sorting out a drainage issue at the front of our house. We reused the concrete pavers that we had before. We improvised together a crane. It's great to be an engineer and just have stuff lying around. So that only saved us a couple of grand, but it also gave us the opportunity to use our muscles and our brains, and benefited our neighbour as well.
So in total, our choices for our house and housing has saved us about $1.2 million over the past 20 years. So our total savings is around 1.9 million, which is why we can retire now.
Almost. Because we've also worked about 20% less than full-time equivalent, which was a deliberate trade-off that has enabled many of these things.
Yeah, this is true.
It wouldn't have been possible to do all of the DIY work. It wouldn't have been possible to have a longer, inexpensive holidays, which we didn't talk about so much. We wouldn't have been able to do all the home brewing and learn the skills, all those things, if we hadn't planned the balance quite deliberately to start with.
Yeah.
So they kind of go hand in hand, saving money in order to have more time, and then using that time to do the things that enable us to save money. But it's been like a positive loop that has meant we've been able to spend more time doing the things that feel rewarding and become more capable, and more able to support the community as well, or engage in community.